So we were quite a long time getting
How
our
many
kids.
did you adopt?
Our son actually is biological.
Oh, okay.
Though we had kind of infertility, pregnancy loss, ectopic pregnancy. I mean, we had a history of nightmare there. And then we adopted our daughter 10 years later. So
cool.
Yeah, we have two. But they're two only children because they're 10 years apart. And I grew up in a family of 10 children. I didn't even know people had any infertility. I didn't even know what that was. So there you go. So, okay, that's great. So one of the things that I've thought a lot about, and I realize some people watching this will be single. So I want to take it from the marriage aspect, but the benefits are still there. Money problems are the number one cause of divorce. But if you flip that around, that if you together get good money skills and you're communicating and you're setting your goals together and you are talking about it and you're being honest and not sabotaging or sneaking around with money, that also translates into marriage in other ways. And if you're single, I think it can be, so Clara, I'm thrilled about your goal to buy a house. I think it can be easy to kind of drift financially and not be real focused about it. And then get down a ways and realize, wow, this isn't even where I want to go. So there are a lot of benefits that it can.
She's very good at saving her money.
Good for you. That's not common in 20-year-olds.
No.
So anyway, Dave Ramsey, I've listened to some of his podcasts every day, and well, I don't listen every day, but he just said you have the opportunity to reset your life during this crisis. So he has baby steps, and in the handout there's links. So his baby step 1 is to have $1,000 in emergency savings. Baby step 2 is to pay off your debt, smallest to largest, as quickly as possible. Baby step 3 is to have 3 to 6 months of emergency savings. And Clara, in his training, he has some very specifics of what he thinks you should have in place before you buy a house. So you might want to go through that just to kind of see that. So then what I put on your handout is resources to help you accomplish your financial goals. And one area is reducing grocery and food costs. And I have 2 links on for that. Brandy at the Prudent Homemaker in Las Vegas, her husband sells real estate. And in the 2008 recession, real estate was hit so hard, and Las Vegas was the worst place in the nation. She went 2 years without buying food. A couple of times, like $20 worth of oil or whatever. So she has written some series. I have the links on the handout. Eating for 40 cents a day. Now, she wrote these a couple of years ago, and food costs have gone up. I have celiac and allergic to dairy, but I do a lot of these things kind of instinctively. I do a lot of homemade soups. Anyway, a lot of things. So I put a few links, and her website is pretty interesting. Another thing she does, and I don't know if I mentioned that there, but she does Monday morning a blog post on frugal accomplishments for the past week. And then people go online and put their frugal accomplishments. I've learned some pretty black belt skills from that. I mean, she black belts because it's the only way they kept from losing their home. Her husband got a sale just in time, but she's now, again, down to no income with this coronavirus. There is another very interesting blog, Debt Kickin' Mom, Angela. They had $77,000 in consumer debt, credit cards, car loans, student loans, medical bills. And she and her husband did Financial Peace University and kicked that out. And she did a lot of videos, zero food waste, a lot of things like that. And that's quite, her posts on YouTube are pretty interesting. And but when you go to her YouTube page, for some reason, not very many videos show. So you have to click on videos or playlists to really see what she's got. Now, so I have those. Dave Ramsey did, and on the handout, I have specific helps for now during the coronavirus. He gave a message of hope, and he was pretty specific. If your income is stopped, if it's been decreased, if your income looks stable. So he kind of gave some suggestions based on what's happening there. But I just want to end with this, and I don't want this to be an alarmist kind of thing, but we are in an economic, unprecedented time for any of us in our lifetime. So what is this going to mean? None of us know. You know, my husband's company is trying to remain optimistic, and they feel they're going to be okay. You never know. I know after 9/11, all of their sales at that time usually occurred in the fall, and nobody did sales. They just watched TV about the attacks. And so they eventually had to lay off, and those that remained went to work, and they said, we're taking a 30% cut of pay as of now. And they thought it'd be a few months, and it was a few years. And I asked Leroy, I said, are people grassing at work? And he said, no, they're grateful they have a job. And they eventually were able to reinstate 10% and then 10% and then 10%. And we were grateful. We were grateful for the work. And people there were grateful and did not complain. But there's been some things. I grew up on a small family farm. And so farm things interest me. It's kind of a weird hobby maybe. But a couple of weeks ago, at that time, there had been 150 meat plants that had closed. And Tyson has actually, I don't know why they're doing this. It seems like this would fuel it. I don't know if there's an underwritten reason, but they're saying there's going to be meat shortages. Tyson Meat Packing has had that in the news. And I guess Costco, I've been trying to stay out of the stores, but my daughter, both of my sisters, there were no chicken of any kind in the Costco's when they shopped. That was 4 stores now, and my daughter asked when they'll get more, and they didn't know. So I'm not saying it's not going to come back, but there are shortages. But these are some things that I've seen. So farmers are dumping their crops. And my brother lives in Washington State, and he's in an area where they grow a lot of food crops. So it's fun for me to drive through there. You drive along, here's a field of broccoli, here's a field of pumpkins, you know. And he said that the big farmers up there have dumped massive loads of potatoes and onions. The processing plants are closed, and the warehouses are closed. And farmers are plowing under their fields. Dairy farmers are dumping their milk, and they can't afford to do that. So rather than pay to feed the cows, pay to milk the cows, and then dump the milk, they're slaughtering their herds. And also the huge problem is they can't get, much of that work is done by migrant workers that come in on farm visas or something, and that's just not happening. So people with orchards, and they just don't know if they'll even be able to pick them. So farmers operate on a very small margin percentage. And I grew up on this small family farm. This is very common. My dad would go to the bank in the spring and borrow enough money for his seeds and fertilizers. And we were his personal migrant workers, so he didn't pay, you know, external help. You know, little kids, you'd be out there. We had sugar beets a lot, and those half-mile rows as a little kid going down there. You had to, and actually the migrant workers did a much better job in their fields than we did in ours. We were just little kids. But anyway, so I'm concerned. And then he would pay his loan off in the fall. And, you know, farmers, if they have a mortgage on their farm, if they have, and the tractors could cost more than a house. So Am I saying we're going to starve? No, I don't think so. But I do think that there will be shortages, and I think we're going to have to change how we eat.
Yep.
I haven't for months because we had another goal before this that we finally got done, and so. But I don't buy junk food. I'm like trying to maximize my food dollar, and. But I served my mission in Argentina, and Argentina has had just a tragic political and economic history. And when I was on my mission, but this is pretty common for them, they had 100% inflation a year. And in the 16 months I was in Argentina, my parents doubled the money they sent. But the Argentines didn't have their money doubled. And printing all this, the government's printing all this money for stimulus checks and unemployment. It's basically printed money, and that causes inflation. So I think that we'll see inflation, and I think in the fall we'll still, well, even now I guess chicken, but it may come back. Now my brother says the Mormons are all buying, he lives in Washington State, they're all buying chicken because they haven't been listening to the prophet. Now they're nervous because but he thinks there's panic buying. So I don't know. I asked Megan a week ago. They had chicken when she was at the store.
That's Arizona, right? That's Arizona.
Yeah, in Arizona. So I don't know. But she hadn't been for a week, so I don't know what'll happen. And I'm not trying to do doomsday. I guess my personal hard financial things have taught me that the Lord is there. And I am trying very specifically to pray about money. We are trying to save as much as possible in case we have illness or my husband's work is impacted. But I'm also trying to buy things because I have celiac disease and I'm allergic to dairy. And so because of that, I've always kept a pretty good pantry. After 9/11, there were a lot of things. One, there weren't very many health food stores that many years ago. And a lot of stuff I ordered for our daughter, and it just wasn't available for probably 6 months. But I think this might take even a few growing cycles. And this is such a hot year. I guess it's the hottest April on record or something. So I don't know if that means we're going to be, or the driest, not the hottest, the driest. I don't know. I'm hoping, are we going to have a really hot year? Sometimes, like last year, the tomatoes did so poorly because it was cold and then turned hot suddenly, and they just didn't. It was a very poor year. So personally, I'm praying for financial guidance. What's the best use of the money I have? How can I conserve it? There's a number of things I've really tried to cut non-food expenses. I've been pretty black belt anyway. But I cut out handkerchiefs out of a flannel sheet that I'm hemming. I'm just like, okay, I'm not afraid there's not going to be toilet paper. I'm not afraid of that. But what I'm concerned is my own personal economy. I'm trying to optimize my personal economy. And I cut up some T-shirts. I don't use a lot of paper towels, rarely buy them. But I thought, you know what, I use them. We have a freeze dryer because I garden a lot. But we use them a lot for that, and I occasionally use them. So I cut up some T-shirts, I cut up some old raggedy towels and then the little odd pieces that I sew, I keep those in a basket. So when I need to wipe grease out of a pan, I use half of a sleeve from some T-shirt I cut up, wipe it, and then throw it away. So I have my own disposable wipes. I just didn't pay for them. So anyway.
And you should see Judy's sweet